All right, welcome back to another episode of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt. It's been a while since we last, caught up to speed with everything as the Eagles have been on their bye week, so we were able to kind of kick back and just watch football across the league over the past, 10 days or so, or almost a couple weeks, I guess now. So we now have an upcoming game, huge game Monday night against the Packers in Lambeau, and I guess they're expecting snow, I'm hearing. So it's going to be the first snow game of the year, or at least some flakes maybe flying. We'll see. But either way, nothing less. I mean, nothing that we don't expect up there at Lambeau this time of the year. So no surprise there. The weather's going to start getting colder, and probably won't see that many more record-breaking 68-yard field goals as the ball gets harder and the weather elements, start impacting those long field goals. But by the way, I mean, I wasn't about to mention that, but we did have a record broken this past week with the who was it? The Jacksonville kicker was it? Jacksonville kicker? Little, I think it was. Was it the Jacksonville? Yeah. So Little now owns the record for a 68-yard field goal, which is insane. I mean, Matt, when we first started watching football, so let's just say the 80s or even the 90s, I mean, 55-yard field goals were considered like the maximum range of kickers. Now these are practically kicking 70-yard field goals. It's nuts. But anyway, I didn't want to go off on that tangent, but it just kind of came to me as I was doing the intro here. So, Matt, some opening thoughts here. The Eagles, I mean, we've got a lot to dig into. We got the trade deadline, we got the bye week, obviously. We got an upcoming game against Packers. So, opening thoughts here before we kind of dive into this deeper.
Well, first thought is hopefully my Wi-Fi holds up. That whole entrance to me was choppy, so hopefully I'm not coming back choppy. But I thought some interesting things happened last weekend. The Colts kind of had a rough game, so they were looking unstoppable for a while, but they kind of had some struggles. Daniel Jones didn't look quite as sharp as he's looked in weeks past. The Chiefs stumbled backwards a little bit again. The Lions keep going like strong and then miss and then strong and look like world beaters again, and then they come back a little bit. But they're dealing with a bunch of injuries too, and will probably get right against the Commanders, a really, really, really banged up Commanders team. Jaden Daniels' injury is the biggest news from last weekend. I mean, and if anyone saw the play, your elbow is just not supposed to go like that. And that's the first play that I've seen him where I'm like, that dude really is tiny. And when you got all these big bodies going on that frail kind of like little body, I'm like, I don't know if he's going to last. Like that dude, he's been injured all seasons, and this season he just seems to be like not being able to keep ahead of the injury bug. So I hope he's able to, but man, that team can't block for him. The only time they have offense is when he's scrambling, and he's just getting pummeled when he scrambles now. So Commanders are up for a long season, I think. But that's the big news. Jim Daniels going down last week. And then Eagles, of course, was the rest of the news and all the moves that happened in 2 weeks. And they were very active.
Yeah, so let's I guess we'll just touch quickly again on the bye week because you started getting into what happened. So, and then we'll get into the, what Howie did during the trade deadline. And he jumped ahead of it, which is always what Howie does. He got ahead of the final day and made his big move. So the Eagles on a bye week, we were just able to watch some football we did. And we also watched all of our within the division and obviously within the conference. Everybody lose. The Cowboys got blown out by the Cardinals. Washington, you just mentioned, not only do they lose the game, but Daniels hurts his non-throwing shoulder. Should mention that, but still, it's a very serious elbow injury. There's conflicting reports I'm hearing. Initially, they were saying he's out for the year. Now I'm hearing he might be only missing maybe 3 weeks or so. I think it all depends on how Washington does within those 3 weeks, whether we see Daniels back. Because I think if they're out of contention, why bring that guy back this year? So we'll see. That's what I think is how that's going to sway. But we'll see. Plus, he could be out longer. Right now, I'm hearing maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. But like you said, they can't protect him. So why put that guy out there if they're out of playoffs? I don't know if they'll be out, but we'll see what happens there. Green Bay loses to Was it Carolina? Who they lose to?
I thought it was Carolina. I think
No,
you're right.
They lost to Carolina earlier in the year, but they lost to Minnesota this past
Minnesota
week.
and McCarthy.
McCarthy, yeah.
JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. So McCarthy comes and beats them. And then Detroit loses to who they lose to? I forget now. I just had Detroit loss. Anyway, they lose. So all of the big contenders, not all of them, but Tampa Bay was on bye week also, but certainly the Eagles benefited from having a week off, not only just health-wise, because they get a week to recover, and obviously this season the Eagles have had their injuries they've been dealing with, especially on the offensive line. So, and they activated a 21-day window for Nolan Smith. So it looks like Nolan could potentially be back on Monday night. So all that said, clear that out of the way. Let's get into unless you have some thoughts before I go on to the next subject matter, as we just lost Matt. Matt, you still there? All right. Well, hopefully we've been having some Wi-Fi issues on his end if you watched our recent podcast. So he's kind of dealing with that over there. So let's hopefully he rejoins us. But anyway, I was just about to segue into the trade deadline. So let's do that. Howie, like I was mentioning earlier, gets out in front of the bigger deals that kind of happen in a very busy trade deadline as Matt comes back. Matt, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So we lost you there for a minute. So I went to you and the screen went black. It's amazing how it's like on cue and there goes Matt. So before I went into the trade deadline, I just wanted to, as I was going through the bye week, I just wanted to see if you wanted to add anything to the bye week before we get to the trade deadline.
No, trades were the big thing.
Did you say something?
Yeah, I said no. Trades were the big thing.
Okay. All right. That part didn't come across. All right. So here we go. Let's get into the trade deadline. So obviously the big, huge deal, and I'm interested in your thoughts because Matt and I haven't really talked about it yet, other than just sharing the news, is the Eagles trade a third-round pick. I mean, the first move was, Jamie Alexander from the Packers, or former Packer, when he was really good. He was a Pro Bowl player with the Packers, wasn't even playing with the horrible defensive secondary with the Ravens. So that could be an indication of how far his play has fallen off. I mean, if the Ravens weren't even using this guy and they couldn't stop anybody defensively, I have my concerns, but I think it's probably worth the risk. They only threw him like a 6th or 7th round pick to get a guy in here who's got experience at the minimum and has shown that he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He's only 28, so it's not like he's like, in his 30s. I think it's worth the risk and rolling the dice to get a veteran in here that maybe could find a second life with the Eagles. But I would keep, I guess my point is, I would keep the expectations low, because clearly if you're not even out there because he was healthy playing for the Ravens and how desperate they've been in the secondary, then I don't think you can really expect much from Alexander. But at the same time, like I said, veteran leadership, former Pro Bowl player, 28 years old. I think Howie just said, it's worth maybe rolling the dice a little bit, bringing him in. So what are your thoughts on Alexander before we get into the Phillips?
Well, I thought it was interesting that they traded for him after they traded for Carter from the Jets, right? Carter was the first one to come over.
That's right. Yes, the other deal. Yep.
So, and, but, Carter's specialty is supposed to be the nickelback role. And so I think they were thinking like, okay, let's get Carter in and then maybe push DeJean out to the outside. And then they trade for Jared Alexander 2 or 3 days later. So then it's like, okay, well, I don't know. Maybe they're hedging their bet on Carter or Alexander. Like if Carter can hold down the slot, then maybe they put Cooper at cornerback. But Cooper's not really been tested on the outside at cornerback either. He's always been playing the slot nickel role since he, came onto the field last year as a rookie. So yeah. Jared Alexander, he might be, one of them. I don't know if both of them means that Keeley and Adoree Jackson are pretty much gone. I don't see him hanging on to all 4 of those guys. Like somebody's got.
Something's going to happen there.
Yeah, and they haven't released anybody, right? So I haven't seen Adoree Jackson. Yeah. That I don't think he's injured, so I don't think that anyone's going to IR from the injury report. But how long they gonna? I mean, it's just weird that they have 4 cornerbacks now. Like last week they had none, and
don't forget Bennett.
Yeah, and Ja'Cory Bennett's coming back, right? So you have a bunch of experimental pieces now, and I guess they're going to learn over the next few weeks who's going to settle in. Yeah. And I still think the best choice is Cooper DeJean stays where he's been effective, which is in that slot corner spot. And I really think they're going to go through and find out who's CB number 2 across the field from Mitchell. Vic's not done figuring things out, but there was an interesting stat that I read, and I must have seen it on the fantasy football page, but the Eagles are actually near the top in pass defense, only allowing 7.5 yards per catch. That's pretty impressive to be looking at the season. And all Eagles fans will be like, oh my God, we got this horrible weak spot in Keely Ringo at the corner 2 position. And yet as a team, we're only giving up 7.5 yards per catch. And that's with a inconsistent pass rush and weak cornerback play. So things aren't as bad as it seemed. And, the Eagles, I think, are in good position coming out of this bye week. They restocked, I'm sure you're going to mention the pass rush that they added later, so I won't mention his name yet, but we'll see that the cornerback carousel is going to continue for a few more weeks here, I think, until things really settle in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good assessment as far as what, kind of like the cornerback shuffle there. I think Vic, to your point, much like you said, and I agree, I'd rather keep DeJean in the slot. And I think Vic is very hesitant to move to the outside too. Not because he doesn't think he can play out there. It's more or less just because how effective and how multidimensional his game is in the corner, supporting the run and everything else that DeJean does. He's just so good. So, it's going to be interesting how it shakes out. To me, if I was going to predict, I think Bennett should get probably the first crack at it because he's a guy who has come in spottingly through this year because he's been battling injuries and he's played pretty well when he's been in there. So I'd like to see him maybe get the first shot and see if he can, put a stamp on getting that starting role. And then you got Ringo, obviously, to back him up. Ringo is one guy they wouldn't release because he's so good on special teams. He's a big-time special teams guy. So I don't see if anyone's going to get released, I don't think it'll be Ringo. I think it would be Adoree Jackson, even though Adoree's, when he's been in there recently, he's played pretty well too. So, but he would probably be the one because he doesn't play special teams that would be either released or I don't know what they would do. They can't trade him now, so he would be released. And then Alexander, he's another guy that could easily be released. They didn't give up much for him, so they might look at him for a couple weeks, and if he's not showing anything, then they could just release him too. So we'll see how it plays out. At 28, like I was saying, I think it's worth taking a look at Alexander, and maybe that's all they're doing. I don't know if they expect him to go in there and be the number 1, number 2 corner opposite of Mitchell, but so I agree with everything that you said there about the corners. And then of course, thanks for mentioning, because I was like, damn, I knew before the show. I'm thinking I didn't have time to really research it, but I was like, I know they made a third move. What the hell was the third move? And I couldn't think of it. I was up against our deadline to get started tonight. So yeah, it was Carter from the Jets, which I've heard what have you heard about him? Because I haven't heard much. It's just been all through what they're saying on the radio. I haven't done my own research. I haven't even looked at his stats. Do you know much about Carter? I've heard that I've heard people say he's really, really good slot corner. And then I've heard conflicting things like, well, he's also been on the Jets, and how can you really get a good read on the guy? But there's some people that are very high in this guy.
Yeah, well, he's young. He's another guy that's young. He's on the front end of his career rather than the back end like Jaire Alexander. And it's possible that they traded for Jaire Alexander just to bring over the wisdom and say, maybe you can work with these young guys to get them up to speed because Quinion's busy on the field and he ain't going to coach anybody up. But maybe they can get some wisdom from Alexander to impact these young guys. But Carter's a young guy. I heard that he is, known throughout the league as a slot nickel corner guy. Yes. But Vic Fangio's always looking for just specimens that he can plug in and play where he thinks they can play, and they can usually work out. So I don't know what plan. It'll be so interesting to see how these guys line up when they see the field and what positions they're brought in and who gets spot duty at different plays. Like, I don't know. They have like a plethora of guys now to use against a Green Bay Packers offense that really doesn't have really a consistent passing game still. Like, and they just lost their tight end. So I like, it's going to be interesting, but the true test. Yeah, we're no matter if they play well or bad on Monday night, like the true test is going to come in the next few weeks. I don't think you can really use the Packers as a predictable way that they're going to play. So I don't know. Carter's young, of course, Ringo and Bennett are young. And so they got 3 young cornerbacks now. And, the one that we've been least impressed with is Keely Ringo. But that was a good point that you brought up about the special teams ability that he has, because he does play good special teams. So you don't want to lose that. So I don't see him hanging on to all these guys once they get 2 or 3 weeks out. Somebody's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. My guess is going to be Adoree Jackson, even though I don't know if he really played his way out of, putting himself in that position. He's played pretty well. Our issue with him is he just gives too much space, really. That's maybe just because he's older. Otherwise, he's not terrible. Not really got burnt, like Ringo has. He tackles better than Ringo does. So he does better things than Ringo, but overall, he's probably going to be the odd man out, would be my guess. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how it all shakes out. So let's move on to the bigger deal, the bigger splash. I think the one that has us the most excited, or at least speaking for myself, I'm the most excited about it, because I think this was a really young player that has been, I won't use the word dominant. It's just probably a little short of dominant, but when you look at his pass rush percentage, he's amongst the top, right up there, beneath the Myles Garretts of the world. I'm not trying to compare him to Myles Garrett. Nobody's at that level. But my point is, this is a guy who may not have like a lot of sacks on his resume, but he definitely is one of the top guys in getting pressure on the quarterback. So, and we're talking about another Jalen, by the way. We now have 3 Jalens on the team. Jalen Phillips, who's a guy that's previously worked with Vic as well in Miami. So Vic is familiar with him. I'm sure he had a big say in bringing him here and how he went out and got him. Eagles give up a 3rd-round pick, which they had 2 3rd-round picks, because Howie's, done his job over the years. So the Eagles had 2 3rd-round picks going into this year, and the one that they traded is their own 3rd-round pick. So as the Eagles go as far as we hope they are, it should be a late. It's not going to be. I mean, their other pick, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Matt. Do you know who the other 3rd-round pick is?
It's the Dolphins pick, wasn't it?
No, it's even better than that.
Saints?
Nope. But you're right. You're hovering around that type of quality team.
Who the heck did they trade for last year?
Probably the team that's going to have the number 1 pick.
Who's
because
awful.
they just traded their only 2 good players they had.
It's got to be the Jets. Yeah, the Jets.
Yeah. So the Eagles will keep that pick in the 3rd round, which will be basically a late 2nd-round pick, because they will have more than likely the 1st pick in the 3rd round still, even after trading this pick. So they traded away their own 3rd-round pick for Jalen Phillips. So I don't want to talk anymore about it. I'll turn it over to you, Matt, before I say some more about Phillips. So what is your grade of the trade, and what do you think Phillips can bring to this? First of all, have you also seen Phillips? Like, how much do you know about him before the trade? Just kind of get into that a little bit.
His name, I'm familiar with his name, but I'm not familiar with I haven't watched any tape on him. I don't know. I know he's a 5th-year rookie, right? So Eagles are going to have to either pay him if they want to keep him out this year, or they let him go after they make the Super Bowl push. But I can tell you that Jalen Phillips in his career has not played next to a guy like Jalen Carter. So that's going to be big. And if he's been close to getting sacks, but just tallying up like 19 pressures or something over the 6 weeks of football, 7 weeks of football that we played, 8 weeks now, that's going to change when he's playing next to Jalen Carter. And, with BG coming back off, out of retirement, I don't know I think they just need him to just solidify a couple snaps to let guys take a breather. But with Smith back and Hunt was playing good the last couple weeks, Jalen Phillips to it gives us a bona fide, young, highly talented, highly touted pass rusher that the NFL, the teams around the league know who he is. They know how good he is. He seems to be a squared away kid. His first interview in Philly, he ends it with "Go Birds," so he's going to fit in nicely. And he seems to be a level-headed kid, right? So he seems like his head is screwed on straight, and he's a very cerebral type player with some physical to go along. So I'm excited. Eagles are a win on that one because their third round pick is basically a fourth round pick because it's at the end of the round, very last pick of the round. And, to get a talent that they don't even have to commit to, plus Howie made them pay most of his salary. So he's like, yeah, we can deal, but you got to take up like 75% of his salary this year.
Yeah.
So it's like getting a guy for free almost. It's Howie at his best, and it's at a need position. And I was wondering if they were going to go after a guy like Max Crosby. I guess if the rumors were true that Howie was inquiring about Myles Garrett, but I don't know. Howie's it takes a lot to get Howie to trade a first round draft pick away. But with the Eagles first round draft pick, he probably would have been for it. But they were probably wanting 2 first rounders to make up for, Eagles are basically second round if they got a first round pick, third round if they got a second round pick because they won the Super Bowl. So I wasn't buying into the Garrett hype. That would have taken a lot unless AJ Brown was going to be part of that trade.
Which I said last. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think the Eagles would be interested. The Eagles, I think in most cases, they look out for their players even when they're trading them. I think they do care about where they would trade AJ Brown to, and I don't think they want to trade him to a team that's awful.
Yeah,
and just watch his career tank after that. But I could be wrong, but it just seems like they care a little bit more about that. So unless a player was involved for Garrett, I didn't see that trade going down. I was surprised that AJ is still on the roster, and maybe all of that stupid publicity on social media that AJ was wrapping up, maybe that's over now because you didn't get traded, so you're not going to get traded. So now what are you going to do? You're either going to play dominant or still be a cancer. One of those things is going to change immediately, I think. And I don't think we hear another peep from AJ the rest of the year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I mentioned in the top of the show, that I'll get into what his press conference. And I didn't see the whole thing. Not that he gave a press conference. They catch him in the locker room or whatever. They gave a quick soundbite, but we'll get to that shortly. Wanted to get back. Stay on topic with the trade deadline. But certainly AJ was involved in that with the rumors and everything. I didn't think, and I mentioned this, I didn't think there was any chance, even though it was pie in the sky with Myles Garrett bringing him here, that the Browns would trade him. Because what are the Browns telling their fans? They trade their best player. It's the only thing that probably people go to the Browns games to watch is watching one of the greatest defensive players in the league, probably the greatest defensive player in the league. And it would have taken at least 2 picks. The rumor was that the Eagles were, who knows if this is true, but that Howie was actually considering giving 3 first round picks to get Garrett here. Because when you talk about the finances, that's why I never, ever, ever. Garrett was the one I was thinking, well, maybe for a guy like that. But Crosby and Hendrickson, no. There's just no way it's happening. The Eagles cannot afford a guy like that. So I never gave any credence to those. Pie in the sky, dream trade to get Garrett here. That would have been huge. But again, like you said, Howie's very reluctant to give up first round picks. So never was really thinking that was going to happen either. But next best thing, I think very much, and I'm not trying not to be biased when I say this, is I think that the next guy to get out there was Daniels. So because of he was, first of all, just going back to his history, he was the first pick, or not the first pick overall, but he was the first defensive end in his draft. So I think he was like a top 10 pick, if I recall. I can't remember where he fell, but he was like 8 or 9, 7, 8 or 9, something like that. So he was the top player in the draft in terms of defensive line when he was drafted. He was the number 1 overall prospect in college recruit when he was coming out of high school. So this is a guy that's got major pedigree, and he's had various levels of success in Miami. Again, you got to take the team, you got to factor in the team he's been playing on, which has been okay. It was actually a pretty decent defense when Vic was down there. Ironically, they've had a couple of years where their defense was actually pretty good. They've kind of fallen off since. But Vic has played with this guy, and he had his best year under Vic. He had 7 sacks. He had his highest sack total in his career under Vic's defense. So Vic knows this guy. He's like you mentioned, Matt, and he's the big community guy. He won he was their Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. So here's a guy who's heavily involved in the community, very smart. You can tell he's a very cerebral type player. He's got, as far as his physical attributes, he's a specimen. The guy's like 6'5". He's almost like Javon Curse-like. And again, I don't want to put these comparables out there other than just to say he's got that type of freakish athletic ability. He's got speed. He's got long arms.
Strong arms, too.
And he's tall. So you can see how he can, yeah, you could tell he could be a real pain to try to block with all his speed and arm length and just athletic ability. So I'm very, very excited for the first time as far as a trade to watch a guy play, because I think this guy now here's the cons. There's always pros. The cons is he's injury prone. He's had some major injuries in college. He tore his Achilles, or no, I think it was in the pros. He tore his Achilles tendon, so he missed most of the season. Then in college he tore his ACL. So he's had 2 major injuries below the waist already in his young career. He's only 26. But when he's been healthy, as I mentioned earlier, he is a force. And the guy is really, very good, successful pass rusher. So when we're talking about addressing a need that we've talked about all season, how thin the Eagles have been at defensive end to the point where they had to talk Brandon Graham out of retirement. So bringing a guy like this, huge upside. We just got to cross our fingers he stays healthy, because I think he's definitely going to help this pass rush major. I really do think he's going to be an impact right off the bat. I would expect to be playing Monday night even, because he already knows Vic's defense. So, and he's healthy. I think he's definitely going to be out there. And you can also just tell BG, hey, maybe from 15 to 20 snaps, now they only need BG for 10 snaps a game. Like you were saying, just to bring him in when the guy needs a blow, to go to the sideline for a play or two. So that's going to help that as well, and not have BG have so much pressure on him that he needs things to go out there at 37 years old and try to make an impact. So, and he needs some time to ramp up too. I mean, he's a guy who is, he's been retired, so it's like he's not ready to just go in and start playing football. I don't think he's not that he didn't keep himself in shape, but it's still football shape and shape.
It's hard to turn it on once you turn it on.
So BG probably needs a couple more weeks to get back into mode. And then Nolan Smith is coming back. So, and the thing about Nolan, we know he's good, but he's a guy who has also struggled with keeping himself healthy. So it's good now that at least if he doesn't, if he re-injures himself or someone else on the line goes down, now they at least have another guy here to help out the defensive end position on the ends there. And Jalix Hunt also showed for the first time this year, really, that that was the type of game we were expecting him to have. So, or the player we expect him to be. He's coming off his best game of the season. He had 9 pass rushes, or pressures rather, alone by himself in the last game. So hopefully Jalix is coming on too. It appears that way. So all that said, love the move. And I haven't, it's funny. I'm like, I made all these supers before the show and I haven't used any of them. So fantastic.
Well, while you're putting up the supers, I'll just add a correction there. You said Jalen.
Go ahead.
You said Daniels. You referred to Jalen Phillips as Daniels. So it is Phillips, right? We had his name.
Why don't you, at that point, Matt, you could jump in and say, correct me, so I don't go on and say 3 or 4 more times.
You were going a mile a minute on that one. I was waiting for a pause, and I'm like,
sorry, Jalen Phillips.
Phillips. Yeah, not Daniels. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for correcting
me. We're about there. You go. Phillips and Alexander. We talked about those guys. What's the next banner?
All right.
Moving along.
Well, I don't know much about Carter, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him because I did more research on Phillips and Alexander. Well, Alexander we knew. Phillips I did some research on. Carter I don't know much about other than just some of the sound bites I heard, but I think we touched on him enough. I think he's a guy that's going to be, certainly he's can back up. Now we at least have a slot corner now because we didn't really have a guy. If God forbid, something happened to DeJean, that we have now somebody who can come in with experience at that position, So, all right, quickly on AJ Brown. He just, again, it doesn't sound like you saw his little soundbite today, and I didn't watch the whole thing. So contextually, maybe I just saw a soundbite that made me kind of think this. I got to watch the whole thing, but he's just, they basically were like, hey, they talked about him not being traded and, if he thought that he might get traded. And he just, rather than just say, like, definitively, like, just with and some kind of enthusiasm, like, I want to be here. I'm glad I wasn't traded, blah, blah. He's like, well, I never said that I did want to be traded. I don't know. Something's up with AJ Brown, and I can't put my thumb on it. I just would like to see, like they always say, oh, he's a leader. You hear Sirianni, oh, he's a leader in the dugout. He's got a C on his chest. I'm like, well, yeah, that's more of the reason to not act like such a dope during his interviews or just leave these remaining questions out there. Answer them directly. He's just, I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't like his attitude. That's all I got to say. You've been way down on him more than I have.
Yeah.
You were basically saying he was going to be traded, and you didn't expect him to be here after the trade deadline. I didn't go that far. But now that he's back, he's had a whole bye week off, and he comes back and gives his press conference today and has this another just attitude, like just attitude problem. I don't know what his problem is. It's hard to read it. But
you're not going to find out information from Nick Sirianni. He's going to talk positively about his players because that's what good coaches do. And he'll talk about that all the way up until AJ's all of a sudden not on the team. So, and then they'll say, I wish him the best. He's a great player. He was great here as a Philadelphia Eagle. And that's all they're going to say. You're not going to
get it. But yeah, but you could say that without saying, oh, well, he's a captain.
Nah.
And leader. You can still say good things. You start saying that type of stuff, and then you come out there and see him on television. He's just giving these, half-ass responses, and he could give a crap about, how he's answering the questions or,
I mean, maybe that's his game, is just toy with the media. I mean, the media doesn't know what's going on most of the time, and everyone's just going to talk about it. Look how much time we've spent talking about it, and I can't stand it, and neither can you. And yet we're still talking about the hijinks, childish games. So either A, they're childish games, or B, he's doing it on purpose and just trying to toy the media, or C, he hates it in Philly, wants to be traded because he just can't be happy anywhere. And which, if that's the case, Eagles will, I think they probably entertain calls for trades, but they also weren't going to let a talent like AJ go without having probably a number 1 pick or number 2 pick coming back, because they probably don't feel like he's that big of a cancer. So either AJ is going to crank it up, which would be not a good choice because he's going to miss. I mean, what do? You win the Super Bowl and then you sign huge contracts with other teams. That's, if I were AJ, that's what your focus should be. If you hate Philly, go win another Super Bowl with them, and they will move you in the offseason if you're so unhappy here.
Yeah.
And then you get paid a lot.
Yeah.
Because you were just you just proved you're dominant again at wide receiver. Either way, I just, like, if you're nonsensical to me, I don't really have much patience to listen to what you have to say. So
that's what he was. That's what he was today.
Yeah, like, I could care less about it.
And just his facial attitude, and it's the attitude that he just kind of gives off. I'm like, come on, AJ, what the hell? I mean, so anyway, I don't want to linger on too much about it other than to say this final thing, and that is, I do think that it's possible they may trade him after the season. I never thought they would trade him in season. The Eagles are loading up and trying to win another Super Bowl. And then certainly if they win another one, they're going to try to win again next year. So, but my point is, I don't think they want to disrupt this team halfway through the season by trading, their number 1 wide receiver. I could definitely see potentially them listening to offers during the offseason, and it would not shock me if they trade him then. However, we need AJ to win another Super Bowl. So he's here. Hopefully he just stops watching and responding and posting to social media and getting all these and keep stirring the pot. Hopefully he just, to your point, let's just play some football and let's go, stop with the nonsense. And that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about with AJ. So, all right. Now, as I remember to change the super, bye week benefits. So just real quick, just touch on this. So the Eagles not only get a bye week to heal up, a lot of the guys banged up, Landon Dickerson, obviously, Juergens on the line. Those 2 guys certainly needed a bye more than anybody else. And I'm sure there's a lot of other guys playing with injuries that you're not even hearing about. So Bye weeks are always good for that respect. But not only that, the Eagles take a week off. And like I mentioned earlier, the Cowboys lose. The Washington not only loses, but they lose their quarterback, as we mentioned, who is Jalen Daniels, by the way.
Yep.
Not Phillips. That's why I had his name in my brain. Green Bay loses and Detroit loses. Now, the thing about Green Bay losing is we're gonna see a team that's gonna be majorly focused at home on Monday night. So, coming off a divisional loss, you would expect Green Bay to be firing on all cylinders. So the Eagles are not going to get any breaks. Not that they would anyway going to Green Bay, but my point is that, they're coming off a divisional loss, and you would think they have a good coach over there. So they're going to be ready to rock and roll. But the Eagles should be too. They've had a bye week and they should be ready to rock and roll now. Healthier, guys getting back, maybe Nolan Smith. So overall, I just wanted to say, I don't know if you want to mention anything else about what happened during the bye week or touch on anything else other than the record-setting field goal that we talked about earlier.
No, you pretty much covered it. I was surprised. I mean, I was really surprised that the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. Like they got crushed. Yeah, they truly have to score 50 points a game to win. Like last week, they were like, "Oh, the Dallas Cowboys need to score 40 points a game." I'm like, no, they need 50. They need 50 points a game with that defense to win anything. And they put that versus the Cardinals.
I do like the trade that they made, though. I mean, we didn't talk about the other trades some other teams made. I do think that getting Quinion Williams from the Jets, suddenly the Jets are just like, I mean, they're already horrible. Now they just traded their two best players. So, I mean, the Jets, to be a Jets fan these days, I don't know. They're going to have a ton of draft picks, but do they have the guys with the knowledge to draft well at that organization?
They're like the Browns. The Jets are equivalent to the Browns. Like, even if you traded away all your best players and got slews of draft picks, like, does anyone in that fan base have any faith that they're going to do the right thing? It's just not. I mean, how many GMs, by the way, raised by Howie, have we sent over to the Jets and they still can't get shit together? Like, it's just, I don't know. They're cursed or something. I don't know what the deal is, but that organization is cursed. So are the Browns, and I don't know how you fix either side of it. I think the Browns should pick up Brian Schottenheimer after the Cowboys probably fire him after this season and just roll back with the Schottenheimer fame and see if that fixes any of the bad mojo that's over there. But it's just, even when the Eagles are struggling and they have an off game and everyone gets so fired up in Philadelphia, I'm like, can you just take a step back a second and realize how far away from the Jets and Browns organizations our organization is? It's truly one of the best in the NFL, like top 5 franchise. Probably top 3 in the NFL right now. And if I named other ones, it would be like Chiefs, Rams, perhaps the Colts. I mean, the one thing that stood out that I've been following loosely is ever since Jim Irsay died, his 3 daughters have taken over that organization. And they're on the sidelines and they're learning football and they're learning, like, they're just listening to like the offensive coordinator call plays and all that stuff. And they're like actively learning the game while being excellent owners. It's one of the coolest stories, I think, this year that I paid attention to in the bye week was the Colts and their owner in a very non-Jerry Jones-like fashion is on the sidelines with a headset and is just like part of the team, like operating as like, it's just a cool thing to see.
I didn't really know that, but interesting how you said that he's on the sidelines with a headset on, but he's non-Jerry Jones-like. That sounds Jerry Jones-like to me.
Yeah, 3 daughters are running that team.
Oh, daughters. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you said a lot of good things there for sure. One thing I was going to mention, but it kind of just lost on me. You were talking about the cheat. What were you talking about before the Colts? Something I was going to touch on.
I was just talking about good organization.
Slipped me.
Eagles are a top 3 organization.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks. I was going to mention how you were talking about the Eagles being a top 3 organization. Well, this past week, Jeffrey Lurie made it into the Philadelphia Eagles Sports Hall of Fame.
Good.
So good to see Lurie get his recognition because there's no question he is one of the best, arguably the best owner in the NFL. You could probably make some you could probably debate that here and there. But anyway, he's a top owner, and he's certainly been a great owner since he, number one, saved the Eagles from leaving back in the late 80s from Philadelphia, which was very close to happening.
He's 3 decades of owning the Eagles.
Yeah, look what he's done with his franchise. So been to 4 Super Bowls in his tenure here. 4. And we were at 1 Super Bowl prior to that, prior to him coming here. 1.
Yeah,
in our history.
that's high quality.
In terms of Super Bowl, not NFC Championship game. But yeah, so congratulations to Jeffrey Lurie. And all right, let's get into the Packers game here. And we have the Eagles at 6-2, Packers at 5-2. This is probably the premier game of the week, and they are saving it for Monday Night Football. So we got to wait an extra day after the bye to watch the Eagles again. So let's get into the keys of the game, Matt. Eagles and Packers Monday night at Lambeau Field, where again there's a chance of snow. So
yeah,
add a little element into the game.
I think the Eagles. Jordan Love is an enigma to me. Like when he has a great game, you're like, oh yeah, that guy can play. And then you see some games where it's like bonehead stuff comes out, and you're like, who is this guy? So I don't know if he's at his ceiling. And he just can't be consistently good all the time. He doesn't seem like a guy that likes to play in the snow. And I know the Eagles can play anywhere. Like they've proven that they can win in snow. What was Jalen Hurts' phrase? Rain, sleet, or snow, Eagles trained to go. Like they're gonna maul them. I think the worse the weather gets, I think that plays into the Eagles' hands. And I just, even though that, like, looking at the record, 5-2 for the Packers, I'm like, they don't strike me as a 5-2 team because they look so unstable. They're really good one week, and then they're like, how'd they lose that game? And then they're really good another week, and they're like, how'd they lose that game? And yet, the inconsistency that I've seen during their games, like, they've actually snuck by with some wins. So, Eagles are probably a little bit ahead because it seems like we've righted our ship a couple weeks ago, and it seems like the Packers are still waiting for that consistency to go. Like if we were talking about the Packers today and you compared us to talking about the Eagles 3 weeks ago, we'd probably be saying similar things like, what the hell's wrong with this team? Why can't they get their stuff together? But there's nobody at wide receiver that is a threat. And so if we're trying to figure out our cornerback position, I'm like, I think we're matching up pretty well. Plus Tucker Kraft is the biggest loss for the Packers to not have their number 1 tight end and that big part of that passing game to chew up the middle of the field. Like, I think the Eagles are not going to have all that much trouble on defense in this game.
Okay. Good overall view of the game. I agree with Love for sure because he's been inconsistent. That's the kind of word that came to my mind when I think about Jordan Love. I think overall he's a good quarterback. I think you do a lot worse in the league than Jordan Love is your quarterback, but he does have those games or plays where you're like, man, what the hell was that? And so the consistency has been an issue with Love. Overall, I do think he's a pretty good quarterback, but that's been the thing with him for me too, is inconsistent play from week to week or month to month. And they definitely have weapons. I think Jacobs is one of the best running backs in the league. So I think that's something they'll have to contend with. The loss of Kraft that you mentioned is huge. He was having like a Pro Bowl type season. Mm-hmm. One of the better tight ends in the league, having a real breakout year. So we'll see how they're able to adapt. Apparently, I heard somebody say that they took a high draft pick on a tight end either last year or the year before. So they have another guy, I think his name McDonald or something like that, McKenzie. I forget his name, but apparently they have a pretty decent backup tight end. So we'll see. But certainly Kraft was having an awesome season. So we'll see how they deal with that loss there. Defensively, Micah Parsons. Now, Micah Parsons, we know him better than anybody, being we used to face him twice a year. And the Eagles do well overall. They've minimized his impact because the Eagles are have good bookends on their line. So we'll see if Green Bay plans on using him differently or moving him around and doing different things with him. Because clearly he's one of the best rushers in the league. But the Eagles have always pretty much had answers for him, or at least contained him for the most part. Going into this game, I expect the same. I just don't think Parsons will be a huge impact. But if he is, then clearly that could make a difference in how this game ends up. So trying to think if I'm making sure. All right, let's get into the keys of the game. I think overall we kind of briefed. We got some snow potentially could impact the game. But like you said, this isn't like we're not the Buccaneers or the Saints or, Jacksonville coming into snowy weather. Eagles, that shouldn't really impact them much at all. All right. Where's
By the way, if you haven't figured out a way to watch the game since ESPN yanked all of it's not on YouTube anymore. So I heard that you can maybe get Sling for a day.
Oh, that's right. So you can watch it on ABC though, can
No.
you watch it on ABC or no?
Disney, ABC,
You can't.
and are all off of YouTube TV. So I think I read an advertisement that said the orange plan for Sling can give you a day pass and you pay $5. So I'm like, that's my plan. Monday night, I will be a Sling watcher. $5, no different than renting a movie from Fandango online or Vudu, and just give them. It's such a silly. I don't understand it with all the contract battles are out there. That's above I'm not blaming anybody on one side, but I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I tried to watch Monday Night Football this weekend. I'm like, I can't watch the Cowboys lose. This is ridiculous.
That is entertaining, no doubt. Wow, that sucks. I knew about the YouTube issue, but I didn't know it was like I don't have the YouTube TV thing. I have I just buy the NFL Plus every year, which doesn't let you watch the games live other than the Red Zone channel. Which obviously is, just goes to the games randomly if the team's in the red zone.
Yep.
But I can watch any of the games in full with the Alt 22 view as well after the game's over. So I always thought that was pretty cool. That's $100 for the whole year. I can't watch them live though, so I'd be in your same predicament if I didn't have. I have Hulu. Hulu's the other option, but that's a whole subscription.
So that's my first key to the game is to get to watch the game.
Watch the game. Oh, man. Well, let's hope you're able to watch the game and stream that successfully Monday. So, all right. That is the first key to the game, no doubt, is to watch the game. Outside of that, Matt, what are your other keys in the game?
So I think these things are like even for both sides. I think I'll give you 3 nuggets. And the Eagles win the quarterback matchup. I think Jalen Hurts is way more consistent, way more proven as a quarterback, and the Eagles have an overall better offense. So I think Jalen wins the QB battle. But after that, it's Saquon versus Josh Jacobs. Who wins that battle? And it's the defensive line and the ability to get pressure on the quarterback for both sides of that. Like those two are the equalizers to Jalen being the better quarterback. If we can't keep the running game going that we started up against the Giants finally, and if we can't get these guys healthy on the defensive side of the ball to put some pressure there and get some turnovers and interceptions and things like that, and those are the 2 keys, like for both sides of that. What defense is going to play better and which running back is going to have the better game? Those will be hugely impactful for the outcome of this game. And then if it's bad weather, you always got to throw in there the ability to not turn the ball over, right? No fumbled punts, no snaps past the quarterback. Like focused, disciplined football has got to be key.
Yeah. Which reminds me, I don't know if you saw it a couple weeks ago. I forget who was it against the Eagles? That hike, that snap that sailed over Wentz's head.
Yeah.
Did you see that play?
Yeah.
Was that against the Eagles?
Yeah.
It was. That reminded me of remember the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning in Denver? The first snap of the game went way over his head into the end zone. And they remind me of that. I mean, there are bad snaps, where the quarterback's got to, reach out or, those snaps are just so funny to watch because they're so far over the quarterback's head. The quarterback's going to be like, what the? And they're just running for their life, knowing they're going to get pounded on trying to grab the ball. Anyway, when you were talking about that, I had the Wentz hike that just flashed in my head. But yeah, turnovers are going to be key for sure, as always, as they always are. And you mentioned how Hurts is we always criticize Hurts because it's a fine line. Like we criticize him because he's hesitant to throw the ball into more higher risk type scenarios. He waits too long for wide receivers to get open at times, which we know. But bottom line is he's thrown one interception in 8 games.
Yeah.
And you watch, like we had plenty of chance to watch all games around the league this past weekend. How many games had turnovers? Just the quarterbacks. You mentioned Daniel Jones, who we know is notorious for turnovers, but not even just Jones, just other quarterbacks in the league that just get picked off. And turnovers are such key momentum switches in games.
They are.
Eagles, we take that for granted sometimes that Hurts does not turn the ball over. Other than, I only take issue with people that say when they just make that blanket statement, because he does fumble the ball a lot. He still fumbles the ball a lot. Yes. And there's been many times this year that he's close to fumbling the ball. Like, time he gets sacked, he's almost losing the ball. You see him take like a second, like, to make sure he has it because it starts to come out.
Yes.
That's the only thing that hurts. I wish he was a little more secure in the sack process.
Yeah.
Of securing the ball, because man, it scares me every time. He has fumbled it a lot in the past. So outside of that, though, turnovers are key to your point. My biggest key to this game, number one, and you mentioned it on your, with your synopsis, is the run game. I think whoever is able to run the ball will win this game. If Jacobs, and because think about it now, the Eagles have not been that great against the run this year. And they're one of the worst teams in the league. They're ranked at the bottom or near the bottom for run defense. So they need to contain Jacobs, because if he gets 150 yards and a couple touchdowns, I think the Eagles are going to really struggle to win this game. Conversely, if the Eagles need to get Barkley and continue to keep him going, coming off his first big win, his first big breakout game for the year, they got to keep Barkley going. The line should be even healthier. And again, they ran it off left. That first carry went to the left side, which is what we were saying, Matt, before that Giants game. We said run him to the left, and we also said use screen more. They did both in that game.
They did both.
They ran him to the left, and they used some screen passes. I'm like, are they listening to our show? So They did exactly what we've been telling them to do: run to the left between Landon and Mailata, and use the screen game. They did both in that game. So keep Barkley going. And if he has, same thing. If Barkley's able to run, I think it's going to be tough for Green Bay to stop the Eagles' offense. So I'm putting the number one factor, even more than turnovers. It's hard to even mention that, because turnovers should be it's always going to be a key to the game. And a very important one is the running game. Josh Jacobs versus Barkley. Who has the better game? Not even necessarily the better game, but who has like the more dominant game? Who gets in the end zone a couple times, rushes for 120, 130 or 40 yards, eats the clock up to keep the other team on the sidelines. If it's Barkley that does that, Eagles win. If it's Jacobs that does that, I think Green Bay wins.
Yeah.
That is, like, to me, the key of the game.
I don't have much to add to that. That's right where it is, right? We beat them last year in the playoffs, handled them pretty easily.
Yeah.
And that was with Jacobs scoring at least one touchdown, but just we had a much different run defense last year than we have this year. So we'll see. Maybe that's where BG comes in on first down and has a few snaps early. I don't know what shape he's in. There's no need to put him out there and have him like tear an ACL or an Achilles or something. So
yeah,
I think he needs a couple more weeks to just get into condition. But we'll see.
Because as I was listening to your keys of the game, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, maybe this is a game where they use BG just against the run, bring him in on first and second downs, and bring Jalen Hunt in for the pass rushing downs, which seems kind of odd to say, but that is his strength. BG, especially probably at this stage of his career, he's probably more of a run stopper than he is a pass rusher. But at the same time, you don't want BG out there too many snaps either. So you got to stop the run. And Jalen Hunt is coming off a big game, his first really big breakout game of the year. He's always been pretty good against the run too, for his size. He's pretty good against the run. Nolan Smith has always been pretty good against the run also. So with him back in there, maybe they're going to be better against the run, and we hope they are the rest of the season with their starters back. And now Phillips, who's a multi-dimensional player too, plays the run well, but is really a really good pass rusher. Yeah, I think it's the run. I really did think that's going to be like some keys to the game when we go through this every week, just like are big and bold to me, where I'm like, that's the key to the game, and that's how I feel this week about the running game. I think that's going to determine who wins this game. It's whoever is able to run the ball successfully. Any other keys of the game you want to mention?
No, I think we covered them all. I will say that I think the Eagles will get at least one turnover on defense, and I believe it'll be an interception. They might even get two, but we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if they're able to get the pressure we're hoping for, then that will certainly make Love, throw an errant pass or force something in there. And the Eagles they really don't have a lot of turnovers this year in the secondary. I think Mitch only has one pick, and I don't think they have any interceptions on the other side that I can remember. Blankenship hasn't have his normal 2 or 3 at this point in the season.
Yep.
So yeah, they're kind of due for a game where they get some picks there in the secondary. Maybe this is the one. All right. Well, like I said, I'm not going to really dive much further into than what I did. I think it's, like I said, I think it's Jacobs versus Barkley, and then turnovers. That's whoever does a better job on each one of those will win the game. So, you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I think just based on what you said, I think we might have a little bit of difference of opinion outside of just who's going to win the game. I think the Eagles will win, and I'm going to put this game at close. I have it close. I think from what I was reading you have it a little bit further apart than me. But I'm going to go 27-26. That's how close I think the game will be.
No, it's funny.
I'm going to keep it close.
27 is exactly the number I was thinking that the Eagles would have. And then I was thinking the Packers would be trying to touchdown.
So I got 27-26 Eagles edging out to win.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go 27-24 Eagles.
Oh, so it's not as much of a –
No.
I thought you said blowout earlier when you were kind of starting to overlook and recap this.
No, because I think if it's snowy and it's the weather, that brings the points down a little bit. I think the Eagles, if the Eagles get cooking on offense, yeah, they could end up blowing this team out. But there's so much questions on the defense and the new players that they brought in, the players that are coming back, that Mike usually takes a game or two to gel, make all these pieces gel together. So I think the Eagles' offense is too much for the Packers to keep up with. I think we'll handle Michael Parsons. We've played him before in Dallas. He's no threat. He's a threat, but we can contain him. And I think it's funny that we.
I wouldn't say he's no threat.
Yeah, I think 27-24. Packers are probably going to end up with the ball in their hands, trying to score a touchdown to win, and maybe that's where we get our second interception of the game.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's a late turnover. That kind of decides the game. I think it's going to be close. I think this is a big test for the Eagles, because even the game when they played tough teams this year, they've been all close. They haven't really blown anyone out other than the Giants game, and the Giants we know are not that great. So I think this will be close. I think the Eagles are much like last year. I think they're getting better as the season goes on, which is always good. I always wonder why they get off to a slow start when they have, especially in offense, when they have everyone back. I don't understand that piece at all, how they struggle so much. Other than they have a new offensive coordinator. I guess that's the reason. But either way, the Eagles do seem to be on the upswing. They got a bye week. They're fresh. I talked about the Packers coming off a loss, so they should be focused and ready to go, which kind of makes this a really intriguing game outside of just what the records are and the fact that both of these teams were predicted in the season, before the season started, to be playoff teams. So there's that element in it. A lot of pressure. There's more pressure probably on the Packers to win because they're in a much closer divisional battle than the Eagles. Got some further separation, like we were talking about during the bye when all these, Washington loses, Dallas loses. So the Eagles are really in a good position right now in their division. But there's still pressure on Eagles because when you're talking about the playoff seedings right now, there's a bunch of teams that are right there with Eagles. So you got Tampa Bay at 6-2, and we know we don't want to go to Tampa or down there to play them. In the playoffs, you have the 49ers. I think that their record is over bloated because they have such an easy schedule. But they're well coached, and if they can figure things out, they could potentially be a dangerous team. I'm not really worried about the 49ers, though. The Rams, we know, played Eagles really good. So they're around a 6-2 record as well. So there's my point is that it's still a very important game for the Eagles to stay ahead of these teams for the tiebreakers and the seeding in the playoffs, so that they have to go through Philly, to get to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, marquee matchup Monday night. Get Sling if you have to for YouTube if you're a YouTube subscriber.
I heard it was $4.99. I'm like, I can afford that. Let's go.
Yeah, it's either that or I guess you go across the street and hang out with Jerry for the game. But yeah. So, any final thoughts? So, by the way, before we get into final thoughts, I always forget. I always say this for the end, but thank you for subscribing. Make sure you continue to subscribe. If you're first time here to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and all that kind of good stuff. We were thinking about doing a live stream for this show this week, but it just didn't work out. We're going to do a live stream to kind of talk about like the mid-season review. Sometimes our schedules just doesn't permit that allowance. So thank you for tuning in and joining us. So, Matt, closing thoughts for Green Bay Eagles Monday night.
Well, it's time to get on that post-bye week roll where the Eagles like to rattle off like 8 wins in a row. So that's where I'm looking like, let's get 5. Let's go for 5 wins in a row. Let's take care of our business. Let's lock up home field advantage. It starts Monday night. And just to jump on to the like and subscribe, if you don't like the fact that we don't have a producer, then like and subscribe so that we can get a producer and you won't hear us make so many mispronunciations or have Alzheimer's, like live Alzheimer's. And we can fix that if you help us out. That's all I got.
Well said. Well said. And, you don't have to hear me call Jalen Phillips Jaden Daniels for the first 20 minutes of this podcast today. All right. Well, if anything, hopefully it provides comic relief, nothing else.
There we go.
So with that said, thanks again for watching. And again, make sure you do subscribe and like the channel. Really appreciate it. And let's get a win. Let's get a win. Like Matt said, let's keep rolling. Let's keep getting better, because after Green Bay, it doesn't get any easier. You got the Lions and their high flying offense coming in. And that's going to be another test. That's in Philly. So, and that's why these games are so important, because if the Eagles play the Lions in the playoffs, you'd much rather have them playing in Philadelphia than having to go up there to the Lions Stadium, which is one of the loudest in the league as well, and a tough place to play. So 2 big tests here coming up for our Eagles. All right. Again, thanks for watching. We'll be back for the post-game early part of next week to recap, hopefully, what is another Eagles victory. And until then, for Matt, I'm Geoff. Thanks for watching. And as always, fly, Eagles, fly. Matt?
Go Birds.
We'll see you next time.